Most people wait until they're sick to think about medicine. But what if some of the most powerful remedies could be growing quietly in your backyard, right now, and you didn't even realize it? If you enjoy simple, practical ways to grow your own food and natural remedies at home, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Most people don't think about medicinal plants until something goes wrong. A headache, a burn, trouble sleeping, and suddenly you're searching for a solution. But here's the quiet truth. Some of the most reliable remedies don't come from a store. They come from plants people use for generations, long before modern medicine was easy to access. And what's interesting is many of these plants are incredibly easy to grow. They don't need perfect soil. They don't need constant attention. In fact, some of them practically grow themselves. But the real reason this matters right now isn't just about convenience. It's about control. When you grow medicinal plants at home, you're not depending on availability, prices, or last-minute trips. You already have what you need right outside your door, or even on a small windowsill. And for a lot of people, especially beginners or those with limited space, this changes how gardening feels. It's no longer just about growing food. It becomes something deeper, quiet security, a kind of backup plan that's always there. And the best part? You don't need a big garden to start. In fact, the next plant on this list might already be one of the most powerful remedies you can grow, and it fits in a single pot. Aloe vera is one of those plants that almost feels too simple to be this useful. You've probably seen it before: thick fleshy leaves, almost like a succulent. But inside those leaves is a clear gel that has been used for centuries as a natural remedy. And once you start growing it, you begin to realize just how often you reach for it. The obvious use is for burns, sunburn, kitchen burns, even minor skin irritation. Just snap a leaf, squeeze out the gel, and apply it directly. No processing, no preparation, it's ready the moment you need it. But here's what most people don't realize. Aloe isn't just for emergencies. It becomes part of everyday life. Small cuts, dry skin, bug bites, it quietly replaces products you would normally buy, and growing it couldn't be easier. Aloe thrives on neglect. It prefers dry conditions, doesn't need frequent watering, and actually does better when you leave it alone. That makes it perfect for beginners, and especially useful for anyone who doesn't want a high-maintenance garden. It also grows well in containers, which means even if you only have a balcony, a patio, or a sunny window, you can still have a living first-aid plant within reach. And once your plant matures, it starts producing offshoots, little baby plants you can separate and grow more of. So one plant quickly turns into several, without any extra effort. And that's what makes aloe so powerful. It's not just useful, it multiplies. But if you think that's impressive, the next plant grows even faster, and spreads so easily. Most gardeners try to control it, not grow it. Peppermint is one of those plants that almost grows a little too well. In fact, many gardeners will tell you to be careful with it because once it starts spreading, it doesn't like to stop. But here's the interesting part. That's exactly what makes it so valuable. Peppermint is fast, aggressive, and incredibly low effort. You plant it once, and it keeps coming back, filling space, giving you more leaves than you know what to do with. And those leaves, they're far more than just flavor. Peppermint has been used for generations to help with digestion. Things like bloating, discomfort after meals, even mild nausea. A simple tea made from fresh leaves can be one of the easiest remedies you'll ever use. But it doesn't stop there. The scent alone has a calming effect for some people, and it's often used to help with headaches or mental fatigue. Some even keep fresh peppermint nearby just to smell its. It's that refreshing. And unlike many plants, peppermint doesn't demand perfect conditions. It grows in average soil, tolerates partial shade, and doesn't need constant care. If anything, the only real mistake is planting it directly in the ground without control. Because once it spreads, it can take over. That's why growing it in a pot is often the smarter choice. You still get all the benefits without losing control of your garden, and once you start harvesting it regularly, it just grows back stronger. But while peppermint spreads across your garden, the next plant works in a completely different way, quietly strengthening your body from the inside out. Garlic is one of the most overlooked medicinal plants, simply because it's so familiar. Most people see it as just another kitchen ingredient, something you cook with, something you buy without thinking. But for centuries, garlic wasn't just food, it was one of the most trusted natural medicines people relied on. And the reason is surprisingly simple. Garlic contains powerful natural compounds that support the body in ways most store-bought products try to imitate. It's known for helping the immune system, especially during seasonal illnesses. It also has strong antibacterial properties, which is why it's been used traditionally to fight infections. But here's what makes garlic stand out in a home garden. It's incredibly reliable. You plant a single clove, and over time, it multiplies into a full bulb. Then each of those cloves can be planted again. So what starts as a small amount quickly turns into a steady, renewable supply. And unlike delicate crops, garlic doesn't demand constant attention. It grows quietly in the background. Plant it, give it some time, and it does its job. It also stores well after harvest, which makes it even more valuable. You're not just growing something fresh, you're building a you can rely on later. And in a small garden, that matters. Because when space is limited, every plant needs to earn its place. Garlic does that without question. But while garlic works behind the scenes as a powerful internal remedy, the next plant does something very different. It heals from the outside, and most gardens don't even think to include it. Calendula is one of those plants people often grow for its bright orange flowers, without realizing it might be one of the most useful healing plants they could have. At first glance, it just looks decorative. Soft petals, warm color, easy to grow. But behind that simple appearance is a plant that has been used for generations to support skin healing. Calendula is especially known for helping with cuts, scrapes, minor wounds, and irritated skin. The petals can be infused into oils, turned into salves, or even used fresh in simple preparations. And unlike complicated remedies, this is something you can make at home with very little effort. But here's what makes calendula stand out even more. It grows easily, almost effortlessly. It doesn't need perfect soil. It tolerates different conditions. And in many gardens, once you plant it, it starts to self-seed, meaning it drops seeds and comes back on its own the next season. So instead of replanting every year, you end up with a plant that quietly returns and keeps giving. It also attracts beneficial insects, which helps the rest of your garden stay healthier. So it's not just a medicinal plant, it supports your entire growing system. And yet, most people skip it. They focus on vegetables, maybe a few herbs, but they miss plants like this that serve a completely different purpose. But if calendula is a quiet helper in the garden, the next plant is something else entirely. It's often called one of the most nutrient-dense plants in the world, and, once you understand why, it's hard to ignore. Moringa is one of those plants that almost sounds exaggerated, until you see what it can actually do. In many parts of the world, it's known as the miracle tree, not because it's rare or difficult, but because it produces an incredible amount of nutrition from a single plant with very little effort. The leaves alone are packed with vitamins and minerals. People dry them, grind them into powder, or use them fresh in meals. And in situations where access to fresh, healthy food is limited, moringa becomes more than just a plant. It becomes a steady source of nourishment. But here's what makes it even more valuable. It grows fast. Once established, moringa can shoot up quickly, producing leaves you can harvest again and again. And the more you harvest, the more it encourages new growth. It also handles tough conditions surprisingly well. Heat, dry spells, less than perfect soil. Moringa adapts where many other plants struggle. That's why it's often considered a true survival crop. You're not planting it for decoration. You're planting it because it gives back consistently, with very little input. And even in smaller spaces, it can be grown in large containers and kept trimmed to a manageable size, so you don't need a full backyard to benefit from it. Once you have it growing, it becomes one of those plants you're glad you started early, because it keeps producing quietly in the background. But if moringa is powerful because of what it provides nutritionally, the next plant is valued for something different. It's small, simple, and easy to overlook, but it's one of the strongest natural defenders you can grow. Thyme is one of the smallest plants on this list, but it carries a kind of quiet strength most people completely overlook. At first, it just seems like a basic kitchen herb, something you sprinkle into food and forget about. But historically, thyme has been valued for something much deeper: its natural antimicrobial properties. In simple terms, it's been used to help the body deal with bacteria and support respiratory health. Teas, infusions, even steam with thyme have been used for generations, especially during cold seasons. And what makes thyme even more appealing is how easy it is to grow. It doesn't need rich soil. It doesn't need constant watering. In fact, it prefers conditions that would stress most other plants. Dry soil, lots of sun, and minimal attention. That's where thyme thrives. Once it's established, it becomes one of those plants you barely have to think about. It just sits there, slowly spreading, ready whenever you need it. It also grows beautifully in pots, making it perfect for small spaces, balconies, or even a sunny windowsill. And because it's a perennial, it comes back year after year. So instead of replanting, you're building something permanent. But while thyme works as a quiet, steady defender, the next plant brings something different. It's known for calming the mind, but what most people don't realize is how many problems it quietly helps solve beyond just sleep. Chamomile is often seen as a sleep tea, but that's only a small part of what makes it valuable. Yes, it's well known for helping you relax. A warm cup of chamomile tea in the evening can calm the body, ease tension, and make it easier to wind down after a long day. But here's what most people miss. Chamomile is also deeply supportive for digestion. It's been used for generations to soothe the stomach, reduce discomfort, and help the body settle after heavy or stressful meals. And in today's fast-paced world, that alone makes it worth growing. What's even better is how gentle it is. Unlike some stronger herbs, chamomile is mild, which means it's often suitable for regular use. And growing it is surprisingly simple. Chamomile can thrive in containers, small garden beds, or even tucked into unused corners of your space. It doesn't demand perfect care, and once it starts growing, it often reseeds itself, coming back again without much effort. You plant it once, and it quietly returns. And when it blooms, those small, daisy-like flowers become both beautiful and useful at the same time. But here's the bigger picture. Each of these plants does something different, and when you grow them together, you're not just planting a garden, you're building something far more valuable. Most gardeners focus on growing food, and that's important. But what many people miss is this: a small collection of medicinal plants can be just as valuable as a full vegetable bed, because these plants don't just feed you, they support you. They step in during small everyday problems, cuts, burns, stress, digestion, and, over time, you start relying less on outside solutions and more on what you've already grown yourself. And that shift is powerful. It's not about replacing everything overnight. It's about building quiet resilience, one plant at a time. A pot of aloe by the window, peppermint on the balcony, garlic in a corner of your garden, chamomile returning on its own each season. Individually, they seem simple, but together, they create something most people don't realize they're missing: a kind of self-reliance that doesn't feel complicated or overwhelming. And the best time to start is before you need them, because once they're growing, they're always there, ready, steady, and working in the background without asking much from you. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more simple ways to grow food, remedies, and real security right at home.